It was 3:07 a.m. when the sound of shattering wood ripped through the silence of a quiet suburban neighborhood. The woman who lived inside that house, Elena Morris, was known by her neighbors as the Quiet One. She rarely spoke, always wore a faded gray hoodie, and kept her curtains drawn. To the world she was a nobody, a lonely widow living on the edge of town with no family and no reason to be remembered. But that night, as three masked men kicked her door open, they were about to discover how dangerously wrong they were. The first man entered shouting, his flashlight cutting through the darkness like a blade. "Search everywhere!" he barked, his voice trembling with adrenaline. The other two stormed inside, kicking over furniture, scanning the hallways, unaware that the very woman they came to scare had already vanished from sight. Upstairs, in the shadow of her bedroom door, Elena's eyes opened, calm, cold, trained. She had been awake since the first sound of a boot brushing her porch. Her instincts, once buried deep under a quiet life, had awakened in full force. She reached under her pillow, fingers brushing against cold metal, her Glock 19 perfectly oiled, perfectly legal, perfectly ready. As she moved silently to her closet, the faint tattoo of footsteps below grew louder. Her heartbeat stayed steady, her breathing controlled. Every move she made was precise, deliberate, like muscle memory written by years of service. The intruders had no idea that the quiet woman they came to rob had once hunted men far more dangerous than them. They didn't know that behind those calm blue eyes lived an ex-FBI field agent who had vanished after a mission that went horribly wrong. They thought she was just an easy mark, but they were about to learn that monsters sometimes retire, not die. The front hallway creaked. One man called out, "You check the back! I'll take upstairs." His voice carried the arrogance of someone who thought power came from noise. Elena crouched low beside the staircase, counting the seconds between their movements, noting the direction of each sound. Then, one small misstep from the man climbing the stairs, and she moved like lightning. A knee strike to the jaw sent him crashing backward down the steps, weapon flying from his hand. The other two spun in shock as she descended, slow and composed, the dim hallway light catching the steel glint of her gun. "Who are you?" one of them shouted, raising his pistol shakily. "Wrong house," she said softly, her voice flat, deadly calm. The man's trigger finger twitched, but before he could pull it, she had already aimed center mass, her barrel steady as stone. "You've got 3 seconds to drop it," she said. 1, 2, he froze, sweat dripping down his temple. Behind him, the third man cursed under his breath and tried to move toward the kitchen window. 3. The sound of the gunshot was sharp and final. The bullet buried itself in the wall beside his ear, a warning more terrifying than death. "You've got no idea who you're dealing with," she murmured, stepping forward into the light. And that's when she pulled it out, the small, worn leather wallet from her hoodie pocket. She flipped it open, revealing the glint of silver and blue beneath her thumb. The badge caught the faint flicker of the hallway bulb. Federal Bureau of Investigation. The silence that followed could have frozen air. The men stopped breathing. Every ounce of arrogance drained from their faces. "You broke into a federal agent's house," she said, lowering her gun slightly but not her guard. "You're going to stay right where you are until my friends arrive." One of them stammered, You're lying! You're not FBI anymore!" Her lips twitched, the ghost of a smirk appearing for the first time that night. "Old habits die hard," she whispered, and the faint red flash of approaching sirens painted the windows. They didn't know she had triggered the silent panic alarm under her nightstand the moment they broke in. Within minutes, police lights flooded the street, neighbors woke, and the illusion of the quiet woman was shattered forever. As officers stormed in, handcuffing the intruders, Elena stood at her doorway, calm as if she'd merely been disturbed from a dream. "You okay, Agent Morris?" asked the first officer, who recognized her. She nodded once, eyes distant, her voice steady, just like old times, but inside, her heart wasn't steady, it was conflicted. She hadn't shown that badge in years. She'd promised herself she'd never need it again. She had built this quiet life to escape the ghosts of the past. The operation that cost her partner his life, the one mistake that ended her career. Yet tonight, destiny had kicked down her door, and she'd answered like the woman she used to be. As dawn began to wash the sky in pale gray, she sat on her porch watching the cruisers fade into the distance. Somewhere deep inside, she knew this wasn't over. Someone had sent those men, Not for money, not for jewelry, but for her. The way they moved, the precision in their timing, it wasn't random. It was coordinated. That thought lingered like a storm cloud on the edge of her mind. She looked down at her badge again, her reflection trembling in the polished metal. "Looks like we're back in business," she whispered to herself. Then, turning toward the camera as if addressing the audience directly, her voice softened but carried a warning tone. "Sometimes, life tests the strength you try to hide. And when it does, you either run or you rise." The faintest smile crossed her lips as the screen faded to black. If you want to know what happens when she finds out who sent them, hit that subscribe button. Because the next chapter changes everything.